So welcome everybody to another session of our COVID Crisis Comeback Challenge Sunday Alumni Mastermind. Yes, and we have a whole bunch of alumni here tonight, and I'm really excited to see you all. Very happy that you're here. And we are going to be discussing a topic tonight that is very near and dear to everyone's heart, and that is how to deal with change, right? So that change doesn't deal with you, basically. So yeah, what we're going to talk about is, we are constantly faced with change. It is as normal a part of life as breathing, eating, sleeping, drinking. And it often creates stress for us and often can create imbalance. And it can also interfere with us in achieving the goals that we've set for ourselves. So tonight I wanted to look a little more closely into that process of change and how we react to it and how we choose to act. And the results we're going to get is based on which of those two things we choose. So I'm going to share my screen. And I want to take a look at, this was a worksheet I created during the very first mastermind of the COVID Crisis Comeback Challenge back in August of 2020, in the midst of COVID. And I think it's very important to go back to and review. And you'll know the one I'm talking about, Choices in a Crisis. And basically, this is dealing with how do we act or react, choose or have it chosen for us when we are dealing with change. So in this worksheet, we start looking at what choices could you make and then what choices would you make. The answer to the what choices would you make can only come from you. The answers to what choices could you make are coming from this worksheet. And so let's dive right into this. When change occurs, change is something that activates our reptilian brain, the brain stem, otherwise known as the reticular brain. This is the part of the brain that is dealing with survival, flight, fight or freeze reactions. And just like reacting to a saber-toothed tiger coming at you to eat you, the brainstem reacts to change in pretty much the same way, because change creates a state of unknown, and we tend to instinctively fear the unknown because there could be a saber-toothed tiger inside that cave of the unknown, right? And so what we are working against is our own brain's tendency to react to stimulus that it is not used to. Excuse me. So in reacting to stimulus that it's not used to, we then have very little choice. Our mind is made up for us in this situation. So the first thing we want to look at is, when we are dealing with change, just like when we are dealing with anything in a crisis, because change is a sort of crisis, we look at two options here. Will we react with anger? Because we're basically reacting out of fear, and anger is an offshoot of fear. So will we react with anger? Will we react with fear? Will we react with frustration because the change creates a state of things not staying the same and we lose control? And do we react with immediately blaming everyone and everything around us for the change? Okay? So just think about that for a moment. Raise your hand if you've ever reacted to change with anger, fear, frustration, and blame. Okay, It's a natural reaction. And that's why we want to be consciously moving away from reactions and moving towards active choice, right? A choice that we've contemplated on and we've worked through. And it goes on to ask you, what would be the positive outcomes if you focused on assessing the situation first, exploring what the opportunities were for you to learn and grow from the situation, and potentially generate new opportunities, potentially new revenues if you're a business, or give you the opportunity to take a creative direction in your life? Okay. So one choice is to react out of anger and fear. The other is to stop, focus, analyze the situation, explore it, and look at what opportunities are coming to us as a result of this change. So does everybody see that option? Does everybody understand we can either react with fear or anger or choose to act consciously by stopping, assessing the situation? Wait a minute, before I go exploding in fear and running around, the sky is falling, let me take a look at what's going on here, because it might be an opportunity for me to have a better life, to learn more, to grow more, right? So this is important for us to understand. We always have the choice, and, you know, to be mindful when we start flying off, spinning off in a knee-jerk reaction when change occurs. When my son Chad was really, really little in preschool or kindergarten or elementary school, the first year or so, he came home and we had been having a particularly difficult time with something that happened at work. And he came home from school and he was dancing around the house and he was singing, "Change can make you happy because it brings you something new. Change can make you happy because it brings you something new," right? And he was all excited about this song, "Change can make you happy because it brings you something new." And we were like, you know, because we were reacting to the change. And, you know, we didn't want to look at the new thing it was bringing to us. And we certainly didn't think it would bring us happiness, right? Because it was something new. It was something unknown. We felt out of control in the situation. And when we feel out of control, that usually creates a state of fear. So remember Chad's little song, "Change can make you happy because it brings you something new." Okay? Okay. So that's our first choice. The next choice: when change occurs, if we are too attached to the current state that is now changing, if we are too attached, if we desire to keep control over it and everyone involved because we want it to stay the same, if we focus on what we've lost from the past instead of and mourning it as if someone dear to us died, we are really getting stuck into the past, and we are not maintaining the ability to make good conscious choices about how to create our present and our future, right? So this is important. When change occurs, are we focusing too much on what we lost? And are we mourning it as if a part of us died? Or, again, are we focused on assessing it, exploring it, and can we be grateful for what we still have that's remaining in our life and know that they are precious? Okay. For me, this was a very important lesson when, I had jobs and contracts that were supposed to last a long, long time. and suddenly funding was cut, or there were problems with the customer, or there were problems with management, and suddenly the project was gone and the income was gone. Now, I could sit there and mourn, oh my goodness, the loss of this program I worked so hard on, and the loss of that income that I really was depending on to pay the mortgage and the bills and, school bills and all of that stuff, right? But I had learned that, wait a minute, before you start flying off into the morning what was lost, stop and take a look at how much you have to be grateful for. You still have a beautiful wife. You still have a wonderful set of children. You still have your health. You still have your home, right? You still have your creativity, your strength, your experience. You still have all of those things that are precious assets, and you can turn around and use them to create a new opportunity for yourself. And you still have people and people who respect you, right? That you can network with in order to create a new opportunity. Yes or yes? Thumbs up. Okay. So we want to look at that and say, what would be the positive outcome if we chose to be grateful for what we still have and really focus on how precious and important they are versus mourning the loss of something and focusing just on the loss? Okay. So does that make sense? Okay. How many of us have found ourselves focusing on what was lost because that's quick and reactive, and we're feeling the pain from the change, so we immediately, the pain brings remorse and it brings mourning. But because we are learning to not react but choose how to act, we can be grateful for what we have, know that what we have and who we are is precious, and we are worthy to have something even better take its place. And, when I would have something change in my work life, whether a job ended or I didn't get a contract or lost a customer, a project ended, I'd come home, and I'd kind of be a little down. And then Maybeth would look at me and say, well, you know what that means, right? It means something better is going to come along, because that always is what the case was when my mindset was in the right place. It always was, when you let go of something that is no longer useful, something bigger and better is brought to your door. And that was always the situation. Always the situation. And that can be true for you too, if you're willing to look for that. Okay. Number 3. Do we choose to complain about the things that we cannot control, right? Do we start to complain? Do we start to react? Do we start to attack? Because suddenly somebody has taken the control from our lives, right? It's like a kid who has the controls to a video game, and his little sister comes along and grabs the control and he can't play the game anymore. He gets angry, right? You took the control away. I can't play the game. I can't determine what's going to happen. I start to feel weak. I start to feel vulnerable, right? I start to feel scared because I don't have control anymore of the game. We can fall into that very easily, or we can focus on the things you can control when there is change, make plans to use them to benefit you and your family and your community, right? So again, we can react, or we can choose to focus. In the storm of change, we can focus on the things we can control. What can I control? I can control my emotions. I can control my creativity. I can control the fact that I have a whole bunch of contacts that I can use to network with, to collaborate with. I can control that, right? I can control my spending and reduce my spending if my income has been reduced until I can increase my income again. I can control that. I can control how I act to other people versus react. If we become the person who every time change comes along and we are losing control, if we're that person who is constantly reacting with anger and comes home after the boss kicked him or her and comes home and kicks the kids, and then the kids kick the cat and the dog, right? If we become that reactive person that simply just does to everyone else what was done to them, we're in for a heap of trouble and a world of hurt and a whole lot of pain. Because not only does that do absolutely nothing constructive, but you're going to wind up having your wife or husband, your kids, and your cat or dog hate you because you continue to take things out on them with anger instead of dealing with it as, hey, this is my thing to deal with. Got to put on my big boy or big girl pants and deal with it. Not put my head in the sand, not blame everyone under the sun but myself. I need to look and take responsibility for how I'm going to act and what direction I'm going to take. Yes or yes? Good answer. Okay. So let's move on to choice number 4. Do we focus on the way things were in the past? That was a Barbra Streisand song, The Way We Were, right? Do we constantly moan, lament, and cry over the way we were and how much we miss the good old days, right? Or do we focus on what is going on right now and how we can take steps to improve it? And even equally important is, do we focus on the future and how we can plan for it now so that when change comes about, we're actually prepared, right? So this gets into, it's our responsibility to make sure that what we are doing for work makes enough income to pay our current bills and also to create some sort of opportunity for saving and investing for the future. If we continue to live just getting by, oh, I just made enough to pay the rent and pay the utilities, and you know, I can eat one meal a day, right? That's barely surviving. And if you really want your whole life to be no more than surviving, that's a choice, right? You can make that choice and just say, hey, you know, I don't need much. I can survive on this. But is that really the way we should be living, just surviving? Or do we want to thrive? Do we want to be able to have freedom and opportunity to do more than we're doing right now? And also, do we want to have a little bit set aside for the rainy day, or in this case, the hurricane's coming, right? Do we want to make sure that if things go wrong, because it is a fairy tale, if you think that if things are going right now, some point in time, they're not going to go wrong because we're such wonderful people, right? You know what? Eventually, change is going to happen. And eventually, things are going to happen that are out of your control. And you're going to either be prepared or you're not going to be prepared. And by not doing certain things now, when the future comes and you're not prepared to deal with it, it's because you made the choice not to be prepared. Can't blame anybody but ourselves. So I'm trying to get all of us to look at this now and say, when we are planning, number one key thing there is planning. If life is something that's just kind of happening to you and you just blow like a leaf in the wind, if that's your choice, that may be a cool adventure, right? But one day reality is going to hit. And we can have faith in a higher power. We can have faith in opportunities that will be brought to us because we're beautiful, wonderful people. We can trust in God. But what is the saying? Trust in God and what? Nancy?
Tie up your camel.
Tie up your camel. Why is that?
So we're prepared. We plan.
Right. And if we've trusted in God and our camel still blows away, does that mean God doesn't exist?
No.
What does it mean?
Means we had something to learn.
We have something to learn, number one. And number two, maybe we weren't taking full responsibility of what was in our realm of responsibility, right? We don't want to live a life where we are asking God, the force, spirit, whatever you want to call it. We don't want to live a life where we're expecting that's all going to take care of. It's all, everything's going to be taken care of. I just have to show up and be pretty or handsome and say and do the right things, and everything automatically is going to turn out just great. Okay. We can expect the best, right? Very wise people have said, make the preparations that you're responsible for in your life, number one. Number two, always expect the best. But if we are truly taking responsibility for our lives and doing the best we can to prepare, we can expect the best, but be prepared for the worst. Right? That is not being negative. That is not being a pessimist. Although I read a funny meme the other day that said, if you're looking to borrow money, always borrow money from a pessimist. They already know they're never going to get paid back, right? So that's not being a pessimist to say, you know, stuff could happen, right? Stuff could go wrong. Let me prepare for that, right? That's not being a pessimist, being a realist. It's also taking responsibility, right? If we expect someone else to take that responsibility and take care of us all the time, we are going to be dependent on others, and we are going to have a very rude awakening in the future when they decide, you know what, we're not going to take care of you anymore. You're on your own, right? Has that ever happened where somebody let you down? Somebody promised you they're going to take care of you. Somebody promised you everything was going to be wonderful, and then they disappear. Raise your hand. Has that ever happened in your life? I got a finger for every time it's happened in my life, and actually have to start using some toes, right? So this is part of, do we choose to act? Do we build a plan for ourselves where we are more capable of dealing with what comes our way, the changes that come our way, and these changes do not knock us off our foundation? So, an important foundations to have, right? So right at the top, remember our inner resources. Right at the top is the divine, the inspiring, right? The creator, sustainer, and evolver of all life, right? It's important to have a very strong foundation in our spiritual life, right? That's number one, right? Important to have that strong foundation. It's important that we have a strong foundation in our health. It's important we have a strong foundation in our capabilities of being responsible for ourselves and taking care of our responsibilities. And that leads into, it's important for us to take care of our families. It's important to spend time, give them love, attention, and care, and make sure they're taken care of, right? That's another foundation we can make strong so that when times of change come, we have that strong foundation to lean on, to work with, right? It's important to have a strong foundation of a connection with the community. That means friends, coworkers, people in the community that are less fortunate than you are. If we have a foundation in helping others, when we need help, help will come to us. Is any of this making sense? Thumbs up. Good. All right. So the last one I'm going to talk about before we move on to our next item is the importance of continually doing what you all have been doing this year with me and our program. It's important to invest the time. It's important to invest your resources in continuing to improve your skills, your knowledge, and your ability to bring value to the world. In business, it's important to continue to bring value to the marketplace, to your clients, to your potential customers, right? And it's important to bring value. And because the world is constantly changing, life is constantly changing, technology is constantly changing, people are constantly changing. Because of that, we have to be changing and upskilling ourselves, increasing our skills and knowledge and our ability to create value. It's important we do that. Otherwise, we join the group of people who just wait for the government or someone else to solve our problems, or, the tooth fairy to magically bring things back to normal, or the lottery ticket that's going to magically take away all of our financial problems, and we can just sit home and watch Netflix or Amazon, right? Those are choices, and I know people who do that. I know people who, instead of preparing for making their lives better and preparing for changes, they watch soap operas all day. And they hide and just say, somebody will take care of me. Someone's always taking care of me, right? Do we want to be that person? No. So let's think about this for a moment. Let's think about these choices. And again, all of you have this is on page 16 of the guidebook that was, available for download, during all of the challenges. It's page 16. The most recent guidebook was, 3 Keys to Your Goal Achievement Mastery, Secrets of Goal Achievement Mastery. But anyway, it's there. So I invite you to take a look at that, refamiliarize yourself with it, and then keep it handy when changes start to occur so that you can first fall on your spiritual foundation, your spiritual tools, your spiritual guides and mentors. That's always number one. Go to that. Go to them. Number 2, then, once you've calmed down and you're feeling strong and supported and loved, start looking at these questions. Start looking at the choices you can make to either act in a specific way to create a positive environment for yourself, or react out of anger, fear, frustration, lack of control, and literally lose it. We have that choice. So I invite you to keep this handy And when change comes about, just stop for a moment and take a look at this. I'm going to open it up to questions now because this is really important. I'd love to hear questions that you have, or if you'd like to give me an example in 2 sentences, this happened and I did this, and as a result, something positive happened. Okay? Short sentences. Okay, let's start first with questions and keep them short. Okay, who's first? All right, who's second?
Mike, I'll be second.
All right, thank you.
So I think that one of the things I've discovered in looking at these ideas is that anger actually seemed to work for me, in certain circumstances growing up, where I would channel that frustration into action, and the outcome was reasonable. I more or less ended up with what I thought I wanted. And I've had to make a shift away from that. But can you maybe address that a little bit?
Mark, it's a really super point, because for some people, and especially people like me who are from Italian descent, we are anyone with Latin blood in them, we are very passionate, we are very emotional, and we are very reactive, right? And anger can be used as a fuel, right, to get the fire hot and create, energy, right? But the problem is anger as energy is like pouring a gallon of jet fuel on your little barbecue of coals, right? And, right? Yes, it got you moving, it got you acting, it got you to be cause in the situation and not being stuck in inactivity, right? But it gets you out of control, right? If you're moving faster than you can steer, you're gonna wreak havoc in your path. It's the bull in the china shop, right? So you may have some forward momentum, but it's out of control and it can be destructive. And also, a very wise person once said, anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person you're angry at to die, right? So that's really important to have a strong. So Mark, what do? Right? We find a different energy. We replace anger with enthusiasm, right? We get the enthusiasm by doing what we've done so often in this program, and that is go into the future, right? See the goal achieved, get really excited about the goal achieved, get really excited of how amazing it feels to have succeeded in that direction, get really pumped, feel it, see it, know it, right? Live it, be it. Then you come into the present and you use that energy. It is way more focused, right? It's like, do I hurl a hand grenade or do I use a laser beam, right? Which is the better choice? Which do you have more control over, the action and the reaction? The hand grenade or the laser beam? The laser beam. Because if you lob a hand grenade in there, yeah, you'll destroy it, but you'll destroy everything else around it and you'll catch shrapnel because of it. Because you can't control a hand grenade. I can control a laser beam. Right? I can, it's pointing right at you, Mark. It's coming right at you. See? We can control that. So does that...
Mike, I just want to say, and you see that with martial artists, they don't fight with anger. They fight with responding and being proactive in their battle, like it's an art form rather than something emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. there is a term called the unfettered mind. And it was, a book was written about that by the greatest swordsman that ever lived. And he talked about how it is important to develop that unshakable focus and that emotionally unreactive self, so that when we are in the heat of battle as a martial artist, if you are fighting out of anger, the opponent owns you. Because, and this actually was in second degree black belt training, this is an art they teach you, and that is basically how to cause the other person to react to something that you're doing, so that then you can take advantage of their action, right? And it's like you draw them into it, right? You know, like I'd stick my head out a little bit, right? I'd drop my guard and I'd stick my head out a little bit, and they would say, oh, here's my chance. And as soon as they spring to hit my head, I'd already be turning, grabbing them and sending them flying, right? So I know this from the martial arts, but I also learned it from my father. My father was an incredible athlete. There was not a single sport he did not excel at. And I remember he had just had a hip replacement at the Mayo Clinic, right? Came back from a hip replacement. It was only 2 or 3 days that he was able to then get up on his crutches. And we started playing ping pong, right? And I figured, he's on crutches, right? I'm strong, I'm fast, right? He beat me every single time. While on 2 crutches, he'd lean on one crutch with the paddle in his other hand, right? And I would get so angry and frustrated, he would just smile. And then at the end of having beat me 10 games in a row, I'd said, how is this possible? How are you beating me? He said, I didn't beat you. You destroyed and defeated yourself. Then what are you talking about? He says, look how much anger and frustration you played with. You smashed that ball out of anger because I was ahead. And here I am on crutches and I'm ahead. And every time you smash that ball, it goes off the table and I get a point, right? So all I had to do was just kind of sit back, just kind of flip the ball to you, and you would try to destroy me out of anger, and I would get the point, right? That was an incredible lesson, because I started to see all through my life that I had a major hand in every single one of my defeats, every single problem that I created in my life, or so I thought someone else created, right? I had a major hand in creating that because of reacting and because of anger and frustration, right? So if we own that, and if we step ahead and we're really focusing on the knowledge that we have options, and that, you know, life doesn't do anything to us, it does everything for us. You know, we've heard that a zillion times because it's true, right? If we start taking that attitude when the ball is coming our way, rather than trying to destroy it, we can look for what's the best place to tap the ball, right? For it to go where the opponent isn't. It's a famous quote by Wayne Gretzky, still the greatest hockey player that ever existed, as far as many are concerned. And they asked him, why are you so great? How is it that you were able to score so many goals? How is it you were able to be there right at the time the puck was there for you to flip it into the goal? He said, I never skated to where the puck was. Never. I skated to where I knew the puck was going to be before everyone else knew. Right? This was the secret to Dennis Rodman, the American NBA basketball star, quite an interesting character, but he won the National Basketball Association's top rebounder award many, many, many times. Because even though he was unbalanced and crazy and flamboyant, everybody thought he was an idiot. He would sit for hours and hours watching the video of all of the other players in the league. And he'd watch when they took a shot and their elbow was like that, chances were the ball was going to bounce a certain place off the backboard and ricochet to a certain place on the court. And so while everybody was running to where they thought the ball was bouncing to, he knew from the angle and the position of the shooter, no, I'm going to go over here. Nobody's over here, but I know the ball's going to be exactly here. And it was 9 times out of 10, right? That's what we can develop, that capability. Great question. Other question. Nancy.
Well, building on that, so being calm when change happens gives perspective. We know we have limitless ability. So we go to the future and we use all these tools. And what I'm finding is all the tools line up exactly when I need them at the time I need them. And is that kind of like going to where the puck would be? So I feel like it becomes doing more, it becomes easier and more joyful.
Absolutely. You're really nailing it, right? Because when you go into the future and calm down and you take a look at the options, right? And you see yourself successfully choosing an option that is going to create a positive result, and you're feeling that sense of calm, and maybe you go through the situation with your board, right? Before mind starts spinning out because things are changing and it's not used to change, it doesn't like it, it's not the program that it has right now inside of it. You point to the screen, come here, look at Nancy. She's calm, she's happy. Look at how she walks, she's confident. Look at how she, oh man, that's what we want, right? That's the reality we want. Those are the choices we want to make, right? Right? Yeah, okay. And then we sit down with our memory. Do you remember when you chose to do something other than what I'm choosing to do right now? Didn't work out so well, right? Let's choose something different this time, right? Let's go with this. What I just showed the mind. Let me show you. Then you sit down with the emotions, right? And the emotions are freaking out because it does not like change. Emotional body does not like change, right? And as soon as it sees it, it freaks out. The world is going to end. It's never going to be the same. And you stop it and just say, hey, take a deep breath, right? Just breathe. Now, come here. I want to show you this. Look at this. Man, we are awesome. We are relaxed. We are calm. Look at the opportunities to make things better here. This is a good place. It's a good thing. Let's give it a chance. But it won't have a chance if you're freaking out, right? So don't freak out. This is what you're doing. You're taking responsibility to teach, train, coach, calm, and guide the inner bodies instead of allowing them to freak out, and you are the effect of them freaking out because they are the effect of the situation. And remember, there are waves and waves of negative energies that flow through our worlds and flow through our bodies that love nothing better than for them to freak out, right? So we want to change what the way we allow a situation, our actions and reactions, and the negative vibrations of the world and others around us. We want to change that situation so that we're moving towards the type of future we want to move to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
Well, thank you, because that's what you're doing. You're doing it and you're seeing results. Congratulations. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Awesome. Who else?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Elizabeth here, I'm just wondering if other people find, well, for myself, I'll just say that I'm having to learn to ask myself, what can I learn from this if there's a disaster, something goes wrong? Of course, the knee-jerk reaction or the conditioning is to blame either someone else or myself. There's always this blame factor, right?
Yeah.
Right? Thumbs down. But for survival now, I'm having to ask, I'm finding if I ask, what can I learn from this? Especially if I ask my inner guide for help, what can I learn from this? Then, oh my God, then compassion or understanding can come into the picture. But enough of this blaming myself, blaming anyone. Why bring that factor into the table?
100%. Agree with you 100%, Elizabeth. That is not only extremely useful, it's a very enlightened approach to taking complete ownership of a situation and having it be a teaching moment between you and the spiritual force of life, right?
Right.
If we see everything as an opportunity to learn, and if we trust that the divine is like a parent, a loving parent who wants us to learn, right? A loving parent wouldn't look at a child who's trying to take its first step and falls on its face, right? A loving parent wouldn't say, you're so clumsy. Look at you. You tried and you failed. I give up on you. You'll never walk, right? A loving parent would never do that. I have seen some people who've had parents like that, but a loving parent would never do that, right? So we can trust and expect that that's what the divine wants for us. It wants us to patiently keep trying, keep changing, and keep learning, because every time we learn, we're capable of so much more usefulness to ourselves and others, right? And, 100% of the time when change comes through, it's because it's giving us the opportunity for a greater level of freedom, a greater level of wisdom, love, and freedom. Change always brings that, right? That's why in Hinduism, the three personalities of God were Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the nurturer, and Shiva, the destroyer, right? But destroyer actually meant the one that creates the opportunity for change and evolution, right? So the divine is constantly creating, sustaining growth and unfoldment, and then creating evolution, which means we must let go of the old and embrace the possibilities of the new, or we'd all be still dinosaurs or dinosaur dinner, right? We'd be one of those two things had there not been the natural flow of evolution, of change, of growth, of adaptation, of learning, right? So you're right on, Elizabeth, right on.
Well, someone just made a wonderful point that we can imagine ourselves feeling calm and feeling accomplished, that we can maybe use crisis, turn crisis to that effect. That really resonates. Thank you. Thank you for that discussion.
Yeah, and what you said is really, really important for us to continue doing, and that is go into the future, experience the what if. What if I made this choice and it worked out perfectly? What would that look like? What would it feel like? What would it be like? What would I be like? Who would I become if I achieved this goal? What changes would happen in me? What improvements would happen? How could I bring more to the table, right? And I've had a situation just come my way, a changing a pattern, changing a way of life after 25 years of doing something. And I sat and we looked at it and I realized, wow, this is an opportunity for new freedom. It's an opportunity for me to go in directions I never could go before. But by letting go of something old, we can then embrace something new. And we can grow and we can change and we can affect a bigger part of the world. So, great point, Elizabeth. Thank you. Who else? We have 5 minutes. Who else?
I don't have a question per se, but I'm finding out that by doing the work, right, and going into the future and seeing, when changes are happening, and I'm embracing, I'm embracing seeing my goals realized, whatever they are. Even if all the steps don't line up the way I would like them to, or if something doesn't quite work the way I prepare or planned, or I have to go to plan B because plan A didn't work, I still feel good about it. I'm no longer, it's not all the time, but I'm not longer soaking in too much. And even if the limiting belief, oh, I'm not good enough, what was I thinking? Oh, you're so foolish. Oh, this is not, it comes, but it's like, it's gone. Like, I guess I see the bigger picture, like the already goal achieved, higher self.
Yeah.
It's on all the time now. It's, even when the limited me or the emotions try to control me, it doesn't work all the time, but it's working more often than ever before.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, because remember, we've been together now a year and a quarter, practicing these principles and techniques, but some of us have been doing it the old way for 64 years or 34 years or 24 years, however old you are. Those patterns are grooves that have been, burned in and ground in to our minds and our brains. And we're going to have to make little shifts, right? And in time, that one little shift, now I'm a pilot. When I was heading on a course to get to the location I was trying to fly to, and I found that the wind had actually become stronger than I had planned. So I was actually about 10 degrees too far to the left. So what was important when you're flying is you don't make this big turn, right, to try to correct that all at once. Because when you make that turn, if it's a big turn, you're going to wind up going 20 degrees too much to the right. And then you're going to have to make a big turn again. And now you're 20 degrees too much to the left. So what we learn is we look at where we want to go. Let's say I'm here and I need to be, going this way. I don't make a big giant turn. I make a little turn and I keep it up until I line up with the course. See? Tiny little corrections, tiny little corrections, tiny little corrections, and then I line up. Otherwise, you waste a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of fuel. Oh, you're going here, and then you're going there, and then you're going here, right? When we react and do big things, we do harsh things, we do angry things, strong things, right? When we do small, gentle, gradual shifts, we wind up getting further ahead using less energy. And in time, the old habits disappear and the new ones are created, right? Just like I've been doing intermittent fasting now, right? Now I burn that in, and that's my habit. My body is used to that. My liver is the happiest my liver has ever been in my life. I'm losing weight. I have incredible amount of energy. Who would think by eating less than I was eating, I have more energy? But it's eating the right thing at the right time for my body to use it. You see how the two things are connected, what you're talking about and what I'm talking about, Jojo? Good. Good. Congratulations, Jojo, because you're making incredible progress. You're doing amazing things. And, you know, you shine brighter, just like all of you. You know, you don't realize it, but I see it. You know, the difference in how we're all showing up a year and a quarter later after practicing these principles and integrating them in our daily spiritual and mental practices and physical practices. All of us have come so far, so fast. And there's just so much more to go. That's going to be amazing. And there's going to be so much more to come that is going to be really difficult. That's just the way life is. But if we can get strong now, if we can get good habits now, if we can develop good skills now, when things get rougher, we're ready. We flow right into it, right? Great. All right. Well, it's time. You've been amazing, wonderful, patient. I'm so proud of where everyone is and what you're doing in your life. Great questions tonight. Please take a look at this sheet. I'm not a fortune teller. I gave that up decades ago. But what I can tell you is change is in the air. Okay. Geopolitical change, economic change, health change, lots of change happening. And it's really important that we take the use of these tools more seriously than ever, because in time, we're going to need them. Okay. I'm not saying this to, you know, stimulate fear in your heart so you'll go out and buy a bunch of my programs. What I'm trying to prepare you for is the only thing constant in life is change. So it's going to happen, right? So be prepared. And like my video says, instead of change eating you, eat change for breakfast. Get to that point where you're so used to working with change, you just flow, right? You just flow. All right, folks. Thank you for a great night of discussion. I hope you'll take these tools, this page 16, and really, really study it, work with it. So grateful you're all here tonight. We had a great crowd. I love you all. And so grateful that you're in my life and in this program. So impressed with what you're doing. And so grateful you're making an impact on the world the way you are. Even if you don't realize it, you are making a significant impact in the world. So thank you for that.